Hi, I'm Leslie Smith, the principal at Summit View. I have Carrie Holloway with me today and Julie Pouncey, who are both assistant principals. Before I begin, I do want to thank Dr. Webb and the Kenton County Board of Education for all of your support, not only to all the schools in Kenton County, but to Summit View as well. So I want to spend the majority of my time today really talking about the strategies for school improvement that are different from what we've done in the past. I know our time is limited, so I'm going to try to cover those key components. The first area for proficiency, we are really proud of our writing scores this year. We've had a strong focus the past 2 years on writing, and our scores across the board did show that because we had an increase with proficient and distinguished and a decrease in novice across the board. An area of growth that we saw for proficiency is definitely math, and that occurs across the board for grades 3 to 8. So one of the strategies I want to talk about, not only will we have a positive effect in proficiency, but hopefully we'll see the same positive effect in gap growth and the other accountable areas. So one strategy that we have put in place is with formative and summative assessments and a data tool. So I want to talk kind of at the beginning of the school years with the consultants and with our teachers and with my leadership team. We developed a K-8 assessment tool. So what we did was we took all of the assessments and we plugged them in by content area. So we made a scope and sequence K-8 for all content areas. Not only did we plug in our summative and common assessments, but we also plugged in all of our midpoint checks. So we're able to hold teachers accountable to when they're assessing kids. In addition to that, the next step was creating a data tool for all classes. The data tool includes all student names, assessment scores, and then that data tool is used to track those midpoint and common assessments throughout the year. Also on that data tool, we have all of our gap students identified, and then in addition to that, we also have their goal setting for the winter map assessment, what the goal we want them to do, and then we've also had goal setting with all of our students. And so that process is monitored during our PLC meetings to track who's not mastering those standards, and then also determining next steps. What do we need to do during Tier 1? In addition, what do we need to do Tier 2 for those students that are not meeting those standards? So that is something that is new this year for our school. Also this year for our PPR walk form. We've done a good job in previous years walking and being in classrooms, but I felt like the quality of feedback and the timeliness of the feedback was not where we wanted to be. Taylor Mill Elementary was willing to share their tool with us, and so we took that tool, adopted it for our own staff, and we've began using that tool for the past month and a half. And what that tool is doing that's different than what we've used in the past is it allows two-way communication. When we're in classrooms, not only are we documenting the observation, but then we're also giving feedback right then. That feedback's live. The teacher can open that document. They can see our specific feedback, and then part of our requirement for them is to review the feedback, and then we have a column that has teacher reflection, and then they can provide their reflection of whether we ask them a question or if we gave them a suggestion, what their feedback is, and then we can have that open dialogue back and forth. So that's been very powerful for us. We've gotten some positive feedback from teachers because they like the timeliness of it. They like being able to respond because oftentimes maybe we just missed what they did by 2 or 3 minutes, and they can put that piece of information in there. It also is an accountability tool for my leadership team because it's a checks and balances for us because we all have access to this tool. We're all monitoring the feedback. I'm able to see what my assistant principals are putting down, and then we're also able to track that data for the teacher. And if we see concerns, then we can provide that additional support, whether it through our leadership team, getting the consultants in, and just getting those teachers to where they need to be. The next thing I want to talk about is a book study. Over the summer, my leadership team, we probably read about 15, 20 books. I know, a little crazy, but we chose books that had to do with instruction, school culture, poverty, and STEAM. And then our intentions was we would roll out those books over the year. Well, we kind of had to reflect, and we decided probably one book at a time would be better than about 15. So Ms. Holloway is going to talk briefly just about our book study that we're doing currently at Summit View.
So we chose what great teachers do differently, 17 things that matter most, to focus helping us improve our educator effectiveness. And I think our favorite quote from our teachers is, I do some of these things. And yes, they do some of these things. And it's a great reminder of best practice for teacher behavior, for setting those high expectations with kids, and that importance of building relationships with kids. And this book really does focus on that. We have been modeling best practices, instructional practices with our teachers through this, how to mark text, how to annotate text, and then most recently using Flipgrid to respond. So it's a technology tool. If you follow us on Twitter, we've tweeted out today so that you could kind of see what it looks like. But that's the tool that we've taught them to respond, and then we've been seeing it in our classrooms as well.
Thanks. All right, next I'm going to talk a little bit about Proficiency Gap and Growth together.
Before you move on, a question, I would be a little bit, I guess it would be concerning somewhat, being a STEAM academy. So, particularly with the focus on math and sciences, that math seems to be the struggle point and where we're going now. Talk to me specifically how you're addressing math in your answer somewhere.
Okay.
Right now, but just if you would cover that, I would appreciate it. 'Cause the fact that writing's going up is wonderful, but that's not what I would expect at a STEM kind of based program. So if you could delineate that.
Okay. I'll go through and then hopefully we'll hit that question, but if not, I'll definitely circle back to that question. One of the next strategies that I want to talk about is recently we adopted a new school policy. It's called Failure is Not an Option. Being at Summit View Academy for the past couple years and being a new principal to middle school, what I was able to see is that we were seeing an increase of students that were not passing core classes. And that number was growing each quarter. And so what we decided to do, working with teachers and our leadership team, we developed a school policy, started it over the summer, finished it at the end of this first quarter. And what this policy is doing is creating a system and a structure to provide support for students not mastering standards, and then also students that are just being compliant and not doing assignments, and those students that are not passing coursework. So with that structure, not only do we have the teachers bought into that, but we also have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday afternoons available for not only just homework time, content support, but also in addition, all students, if they do not pass an assessment, they have to make corrections on their assessments for additional credit. Because what we found a lot of times was students would take an assessment, but then you got the 40 or you got the 50, and then nothing happened after that. So this not only is holding the students accountable to that learning, and so hopefully it will also be a motivator for them to get the answers correct the first time. Also with this policy, we have a Saturday school. And so after the first quarter, Ms. Pouncey and I facilitated our first ever Saturday school with 31 lovelies that came for 4 hours of time. And it was great. It was powerful. The students worked on the assignments that they were missing. We created Edgenuity courses, and then now we're following up to make sure those kids have completed those courses. I know we're limited on time, so I'm going to talk quick. Also with our data tool, we have been working closely with our consultants. They have been involved in that process from the start. They also come in and meet with the teachers when we're looking at that assessment, and we're trying to determine next steps, because they're the expert in that content area. So they're able to help our teachers determine what are those tier 1 strategies. And then if we realize it's a teacher concern, then they can go into the classroom and model as well. With math, I just want to address the question from Mr. Crabtree. You know, math was identified as an area of need even before this year. So we put some structures in place last year, and I'm hopeful that some of those strategies and structures that we put in place will hopefully see those results at this coming assessment. Last year we restructured our entire K-5 math structure. In the past, we really were teaching haphazardly. I don't know if everybody was teaching necessarily to the standards. There wasn't a whole lot of continuity across the board. We did determine that we were going to adopt Eureka Math. We did a lot of research from other counties. We also visited counties outside of Kenton County, and we felt that we needed some type of structure for our teachers to have as a baseline. We still encourage our teachers, obviously, to be use best practices, pull in other instructional strategies, but this is our baseline. Also with math over the summer, we spent a bulk of our PD time developing standards-based assessments that were directly tied. You know, instead of just taking Eureka Math assessments or Springboard assessments, we made sure these are the assessments that match the actual standards. And so now this is the first year that they're using those standards and then able to look at those standards and then looking at the progress of those students. So that is something that was a big change for us, and hopefully we'll see those results. Just a couple other things real quick, because I know my time is getting over. With Transition Ready, something new that we did this year, we've noticed that with transition points for kids that are transitioning from 3rd grade to 4th grade and then 5th to 6th grade is really just an area of need. So this year we instituted what we call our boot camp. So we had 2 Summit View Academy boot camps in the evening for 4th grade parents and students, and then for 6th grade parents and students. And we designed it based on what do the students need during that time, but then also the parents. The parents followed the student's schedule. Each of the teachers did a short presentation, and then we allowed the teachers and the parents to ask questions. In addition to that, we worked with our parents on making sure they could log into IC to monitor grades. It was very well attended, and that's something that we're going to definitely continue. Also, just want to talk about our mentoring program. Last year, we started that about midway through the year. This year, we have 103 students that are identified as needing a positive adult mentor in their life. So if any of you all would like to be a mentor at Summit View, we welcome you. And our purpose for that is really just to develop relationships and to make a positive connection to school. With that, we've added another piece this year for those chronic absenteeism kids. They will have a mentor, and then next steps for us is each of those students will have an individual meeting with someone from our leadership team, and we're going to set specific goals for them to come to school. We know they're not going to probably be those perfect attendance kids, but they need a goal for them to get to school and also make that positive connection. Can I keep going, or do you want me to stop? I'm over my time, aren't I? I can keep going? Keep going? All right. Couple things, and I'll be quick. I just want to celebrate, because I think that's important for all schools. I think we do a very good job at Summit View of finding opportunities to celebrate not only teacher success, but student success. And we are very excited about our scores for grades 6 to 8. We were identified as a proficient school. I mean, really on the cusp to be distinguished. So we are almost there. So that was very, very exciting. In addition, over the summer, we're always looking to expand our STEAM programs, and we received a Rocket Camp grant over the summer. And this was for specifically for girls, which was great. And so we had a week-long camp that Ms. Holloway led with a couple of our teachers, and we hope to continue that camp in the future. Another big piece of information is that novice reduction piece for grades 6 to 8. They were able to reduce the novice in all content areas. And to me, that is a big thing to celebrate, because that is very difficult to do. And then lastly, just celebrating school culture, and something big that we put in place this year were our royal habits. And those are really our character traits. And we put 5 murals on our wall in our community area. So if you've not been out, I encourage you to come out and visit. Each of the murals is directly aligned to our royal habits. And our royal habits are resilient leader, open communicator, creative visionary, active learner, and lifelong innovator. So everything that we're doing, we tie back to those royal habits, because those are, key characteristics for kids to be successful. So again, I thank you for your support. I know we're working hard at Summit View, and I'm hopeful that next year we'll be sitting here, sharing different results, especially for our elementary school. So thank you again for all of your support.
You answered one. Yesterday I asked all the elementary schools a couple questions. You actually just answered one of them, like, what do you hope to be telling us next year? You just told me that. So what, as a leadership team, makes you most proud of some of you this past year? Some of the Academy.
I can answer. I mean, for me, what makes me most proud is I feel like this is year 3 of being preschool through 8 school. And it was a difficult transition. And I felt like this was the first year where, as a P to 8 staff, that there's continuity. I feel like we are definitely one school. We have a positive school culture in place. And to me, that's what I'm most proud of, because that was my goal. You know, when we were 2 separate schools joining forces, you know, to me, that had to happen before anything else could.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Klein, proud principal of Woodland Middle School. Happy to be here today. Happy to talk to the board. A couple of things. I do want to take some time to thank the Kenton County Board of Education and Dr. Webb for everything that you do for our kids. My faculty and staff, and myself as a building principal, and my entire Woodland community. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do for us. I also want to thank you for providing our consultants who work very closely with our teachers and myself in supporting our kids and our instruction in the classroom. So thank you again for that. I'm going to jump right into it. I also have some strategies I want to share, and a lot of these strategies are newer strategies. On the proficiency, you'll see at the top that we did improve when it came to our 8th grade reading scores, our 8th grade math scores, and also reading for our non-duplicated gap students. All 3 of these areas saw an increase. And we still have some growth areas. As you can see, we've got math and reading as 2 critical growth areas for us. And some strategies I want to talk about, a new strategy for us, students not reaching proficiency on formative and summative assessments throughout the school year in both math and reading are being identified by my teachers. We too are using a data tool. It's an ongoing formative and summative spreadsheet that my teachers use. And when they give an assessment, they're going back to this data tool and they're identifying kids, green if you reach proficiency on this assessment, red if you did not. And for the kids not reaching proficiency on that standards-based formative or summative assessment, reteaching is occurring. And that reteaching can look a variety of different ways, but that intentionality of tracking students on those midpoint assessments, which would be the formative assessments, and the end of unit summative assessments, that's a huge part of what we're doing and how we're tracking kids and how we're remediating kids who need extra assistance as well. All of that, a lot of that takes place in our PLC meetings. In my building, we're meeting in weekly PLCs. One PLC for all of my teachers is just what I explained to you, is focused on that data, focused on instructional strategies. Okay, now we know these students did not meet proficiency. What's our plan of action? And that's what's happening in the PLCs. And the second PLC for my staff, we're just talking about kids. Teachers are coming to the PLC. What concerns do we have about kids, maybe outside the classroom? Maybe it's something that's impacting their learning in the classroom. So we're meeting a lot, and we're having a lot of conversations about kids, and we're taking a lot of steps to put a plan of action in place for our kids. The third strategy I want to talk about that's on that proficiency tab is the PPR, Professional Practices Rubric. We are, getting into a classroom, giving teachers feedback. The goal is to give teachers feedback once a month. And that, by using a Google data tool, we've been able to be more efficient with the feedback that we give to teachers in a more timely basis. And I can track what feedback we're giving teachers so we can see building trends with those classroom visits. And we're focused on quality feedback, and I feel like we've come a great way with delivering that quality feedback to teachers. I'm going to go to the Gap tab. You can see at the top that we did have some success in writing and social studies and math for students with a disability. We have some growth areas. One growth area would be reading for non-duplicated gap students, and the second growth area indicated here would be proficient distinguished for gap students in math. So some intentional strategies that we are using, RTI in addition to core instruction for the gap students who are consistently scoring below grade level on formative and summative assessments. Also in math, RTI plus core instruction in both reading and math for these gap students who are consistently scoring below grade level. And again, that data tool that I mentioned before, that weekly PLC meeting where we're talking about formative and summative assessments, who did not perform well on this standard, identifying those kids. Once those kids are identified, they're now being tracked. They're now being tracked by my teachers at weekly PLC meetings. You're going to see that come up a lot because that's a big part of our focus. Is a data-driven, let's look at these kids, let's get them on the spreadsheet, let's come up with a plan of action. So you're going to see that come up with just about every slide. That's a big strategy for us. Speaking of growth, again, some strengths reading, 58% of our kids demonstrated growth. That's an increase. And if we can go down to some growth areas, again, math and reading. And there it comes again with the formative and summative assessment data tool, the PLC meetings, and RTI in addition to core instruction. I can confidently say that our kids who need the RTI are getting RTI on top of core instruction in our building. Transition ready. I'm going to move on to that slide. Again, we had some success in the areas of reading and social studies for our 8th grade students who are now freshmen, probably at Scott High School. We had some success in reading and social studies. Again, growth areas, writing for 8th, based on the 8th grade data, and also math. And when assessed, all kids, when all areas are combined, we're looking at about 26% of kids who are transition ready. So we need some strategies to address that. This was a strategy that we tweaked from last year. When it comes to our on-demand writing and an improvement in writing in the building, reinforcing our writing expectations and writing non-negotiables for all kids in all content areas, analyzing this student writing at these PLCs that are occurring weekly with teachers in both content PLCs and even grade level PLCs. And the kids who need additional support in writing, getting that additional support on top of the core instruction. Again, the second informational item there tells you about that data tool I've talked about, the formative and summative assessments that are being tracked by my staff. That's huge for us. That's a weekly meeting where we're sitting down at the table and we're talking about these kids who are struggling.
Can I ask real quick?
Absolutely.
That yesterday when we would see kind of a trend in something, we would kind of,
Yep.
I know Josh asked the question a lot. It seems like math seems to be the area. And what you asked yesterday was always a good question. Do we think it's instructional or curriculum? Like, what are you finding?
And let me add on.
Yeah.
What we'll see is from elementary school, we've got really high scores, and they hit middle school, and there's this plummet from what we see. Now, I know that that's statewide consistently how I've taught 7th grade. It seems that there's this thing that happens. But is it they're not coming from, and since we're on a transition side, is it curriculum and instruction, are they not lining up from this 4th or 5th grade that when they're coming into 6th, or is it something else? I mean, there's definitely something going on there other than they're just becoming teenagers.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but here's what I'm just going to throw out there. For my teachers, we've got more intentional with you're teaching the standards. Standards. You're not teaching this specific textbook or this specific, whatever it may be, this specific resource. We are teaching standards, 6th grade math standards, okay? And then for the kids who didn't get the standard, we're going to talk about these kids next week because that midpoint check you just gave, we're going to talk about these kids and we're going to be able to see which standard they didn't get. And that's what we're remediating. So I can tell you that I don't know if it's a specific resource or whatever it may be, but in my building, we're now focused, it's standards. It's not this textbook or that textbook. It's math standards, and this is the assessment you're given based on the standard. These kids who didn't get it, let's work with them. And we're just getting to the table more in my building to have those kinds of conversations. And I think it's going to yield really good results. I do.
Along with that, the all assessed areas are combined, 26.72% of eighth graders are transition ready. Where does that total, I'm just not familiar, where does our total transition ready number come from? Like what's combined in that?
It's-
And anybody can.
I know that there's a spreadsheet that I looked at. It's all areas. It's reading, it's math, and Dr. Webb, you can chime in anytime. It's it's all these areas combined. Yeah.
So we
That
developed,
looked different yesterday.
so we developed our own formula.
Okay.
Because going forward, the state will have one. So basically what we did, we being our directors and our consultants, who really was heavily involved, basically took the kids that were proficient or higher in all areas and came up with a percentage of those kids, which we think that's gonna be a much higher standard than the state.
Yes,
Fair.
the state is, for proficiency is reading, writing, and math, and then there's a separate academic indicator of social studies and science. The transition ready will be an even spread of those areas, the proficiency and the other academic ready piece, but we don't know
Exactly what.
the weights. They just say evenly distributed, but it's basically those areas.
And this
Really
is the year
five
of transition
areas.
for them.
Yeah.
Last year, because they got rid of the EPAS system for middle school a couple years ago, last year, the way they calculated in those areas and expected the middle schools to set their goals, because they got rid of that whole system that led up to the ACT, they said, let's just use the same thing that we do for proficiency at the middle school level.
But to really simplify it, the state and quite frankly our district, we would expect kids to be, proficiency being the minimum standard of meeting the standards, to be proficient or higher in all areas when they transition.
Thank you for the backup support. You know we have awesome people, I have to tell you that. Oh, I've got the stop sign. There's a couple more things I could mention. Do you have any questions? Any questions at all? You guys have seen. If you have any questions, I want to leave some time for that. I would like to mention, just real quick, Jessica, I thought that was a great question that you asked Leslie, if I could speak
Yeah,
on.
I was gonna ask.
I gotcha. What I'm most proud of about Woodland, okay, I always say I'm proud principal of Woodland Middle School. I always try to say that as much as I can. I'm proud that we are growing. Okay, we are growing. Not the rate I'd like for us to grow, okay? And we've gotten intentional on some things, and hopefully that's came through to you today. But I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of my staff and my kids. I've got a staff that's an in-the-trenches staff with our kids. We really care about kids, and our motto is all in for our WMS kids, and I truly have a staff that is all in. And we will do whatever it takes to meet the needs of kids. So that's what I'm most proud of, is our growth and our development when it comes to those things. And my biggest goal for Woodland is that we continue to grow, but that we grow into a five-star school. That is my goal for Woodland. And we'll get there.
Can you, on the opportunity and access
Yep.
slide, just a quick question. The chronic absentee rate seems high. Is there any kind of systemic reason that you're seeing that this seems somewhat high? I mean, I expected an increase from elementary to middle school,
Yeah.
but this is high for that too, so. I mean, is there something, those are issues as a board of what can we
Yeah.
do to kind of help, and I'm curious as to.
I know that in my building, once a week, I have an RBTL team that meets, and we're running reports. And for kids who are chronically absent, one of those team members or somebody in the building is going to go a little deeper. Okay, what's up with this kid? Let's make a contact. Does it need to be a home visit? What do we need to do to support this kid? Is this a kid that's also academically struggling, behaviorally struggling? Let's look at all these. Maybe this kid may need a tier 2 intervention. But that weekly meeting, I think we're going to see some improvement in this number, again, just by getting to the table and being more intentional with looking at these kids. I don't know why that is, but hopefully this structure can improve that.
And you're monitoring that on like a weekly or something?
Every week they're meeting. Yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having us here and inviting us over to give us the opportunity to talk about Turkeyfoot Middle School. I'm Ray Stanley. I'm the new principal this year. Kind of a homecoming for me. I was in Kenton County for many years. About 7 years ago, I think I left. But it's kind of been a homecoming. See a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people that I know, some new people, Dr. Webb. To my left is Holly Spritsky. She is my assistant principal, part of our administrative team. And again, we're very happy to be here and be able to talk about our school. It's a great school. We got great staff. We got great kids. And we're very proud of that. This is my first report to the board. So if I do this wrong, let me know, and I'll make adjustments later. I also like to recognize Ms. Harney, who's my supervisor, who's always asking me questions and making me a little bit better at what I do and making sure that I am looking at all angles and all things that we need to be doing for our students. So let's start off a little bit with the positives that we see. We just finished our first trim. Well, let me back up a little bit. We were named a distinguished school this year for the 2016-17 school year, so we're very proud of that. Our banner flies high as you walk into our door. Just completed our first trimester. We have 233 students that are on our All-A honor roll list. 288 of them are, or 388 are the AB honor roll, and we have 269 students with perfect attendance. Our attendance this year is 96.99% as of yesterday, and that's with 1,125 students. We were the first month winners of the attendance for middle schools. Twin Hawk beat us by about 0.06 the second. Yeah. I'm a bit competitive on a lot of things, so those things catch my eye. Our behavior this year, last year at this time, we had about 399 incidents of behavior, including buses and those type of things. Does not include attendance. So far this year, we're at 216, so we've seen a marked decrease in that. Our counselors right now are conducting groups based on our needs of our students. It includes leadership groups, social skill groups, self-esteem, anxiety, and those type of things. As we see a need arise, we want to bring all those students in, get an early intervention to see if we can't help them move along in the process. We also offer additional counseling services in-house through the DCCH, and a private counselor, John Mueller, comes in and works with our kids about 2 or 3 times a week, each week. We offer Spanish, geometry, and algebra for high school credit. Last year, our reading was at 62.8% of our students were at proficiency, and we did have a 5% novice reduction last year. And our math, even though it's not where we want it to be, it was at a 56.5% proficiency. Biggest concerns right now are our gap students. Plain and simple, straight up. We do have a lot of concerns there. We still need to keep working with our non-gap students and not give up on what we do correctly and what we're doing right for all of our students. There's a tendency sometimes in education that we will see an issue come up like gap students or someplace where test scores have fallen, and then we laser focus on that and kind of forget or move away from what's been working. We've got to be able to do both because we need all of our students to show that growth as we progress through our school. We're particularly concerned with our students with disabilities and our EL students. Those show some of our biggest gap issues as far as, especially in reading and math. We did see a small improvement over all of our non-duplicated group students in reading. We saw 2.6% in reading and math drop in our novice apprentice students, and a rise of about 3% in our proficient distinguished in this. And those are not great numbers, but they're good numbers. There's a good starting point. What are we doing differently? We're looking at taking a systemic approach to our school improvement. We want to make sure that we are working with our whole student. The whole student includes, as Dr. Gross said, social, emotional, and academic needs. Middle school is a tough transition for a lot of students. They're trying to find themselves, trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. And a big part of our job is to make sure that we provide them with all that we can to get them there. We are using our map data and the tracking tool that the consultants put together to identify our students and try to get an earlier jump on them so we're not surprised at the end of the year where they're at. One of the things that we noticed is that we had probably close to 30 kids in each grade level last year that, based on their MAP score, should not have been in the novice range. They should have improved. And they were close enough. So we want to identify those specific students, start building some relationships with them, because if you build a relationship with them, they perform a much better level. Excuse me. Another thing we're doing is we starting tutoring for math and language arts on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That'll be starting after Thanksgiving. Our teachers will be staying. They're going to identify those students that need the extra work. We're going to make calls home, make sure parents know that they're there, that we're going to invite them there, and really it's going to be open for everybody, but we do want to target those students that are struggling at this time with that and get them up to where they need. Several other people talked about naming and claiming the students. I think that's very important. It's easy to look at numbers on a piece of paper and say, well, we've got this many novice kids, but when you look at it and say, well, that's Johnny and that's Jane, it becomes more personal, and you don't want them to fall through the cracks. And I think that's a very important thing that we're doing. We're also looking at trying to improve our school culture, recognizing teacher and student success, expand opportunities for our students to take part in extracurricular activities. We did restart our wrestling program this year on a small scale. We're in collaboration with Dixie. We want to strengthen our ties with our parent organization, our parents overall. Right now, at least one of the administrative teams, either myself, one of my two assistants, or one of the counselors, does attend every Indian Club meeting every month, and we do present, we do talk with them, and we want to strengthen that and get more strength in our community relations as well. And we've created a new opportunity for students to become involved. It's called the Principals Advisory Council. We've got 28 students, no seventh graders, and I'm not sure why that's the question. None of them applied. I'm not sure why. Mostly sixth graders, but it's an opportunity for them to take and have a voice in our school. We met for the first time last Wednesday, and their task was, other than introducing themselves, was to come up with ways that we can recognize student success and have them be more involved every day in our school. We want to implement our a school-wide writing strategy, either what's called TEC or RACE, to make sure that our students have a strategy of improving their writing. We believe that every teacher is a writing teacher, no matter what content they are, and also they're all reading teachers, because no matter what content you're teaching, there should be reading and writing going on, and we need to be more intentional about that. We need to make sure that all teachers are providing rigorous instruction on our core content. We conduct PPR walks, and we also have the tracking system. We want to identify the needs and trends within our department and our schools so we can make adjustments that might be needed, provide assistance to those teachers that need it, and just approve our professional development plan based on identified needs of our teachers. We have implemented PLCs this year. They are on a weekly basis. We meet with all of our teachers. We're not able to do it by content or grade right yet based on our schedule at this time, but we are meeting with them to identify students, to look at instructional practices, and also to track those students that might be falling between. Even though we have, the gap issue is a problem, we want to make sure that our teachers understand just because you're in one of the identified gap categories, that doesn't mean that you are somebody who has to be a concern, that we have to do extra things for, because they could be excelling in the classroom. On the other hand, you might not be in one of those gaps categories, but do need that extra intervention. Another thing we're looking at is our Rti program, implementing it with a little bit more strength, and making sure that we're using the programs that we have in place right now to fidelity. We have Read 180, System 44, and we also do Math 180. One of the things that we have adjusted and we just have started is System 44 now is an intervention, and all students will go into a regular English class for full core instruction. And then one other thing that we've done is we've started a monthly grade level meeting where all of our teachers come in after school. It's technically another PLC, but that's when we talk about three things with all our students, and we call it the BAG: behavior, attendance, and grades. And that gives us an opportunity to maybe hit those students a little bit quicker, get a little bit more intervention prior to it becoming such a big hole that they can't dig themselves out of at the end of the year. We are planning, we did institute the PASS program, and we're celebrating successes there. And our counselors are planning both a career and a college night in the spring to help with our transition needs. Trying to be very intentional about building relationships between our teachers and our students. And, that's kind of where we're at. I'm hoping I didn't talk too fast or leave anything out.
So kind of skimming through all the
Yes.
template, it seems like it's the reading and writing.
Yes, ma'am.
There's some growth that's needed.
Yes.
Talk just a short amount on the specific plans for, you talked a little bit about RTI.
Right. We want to be very specific on our placement of students in RTI. We want to make sure that it's not just a compliance issue that, we can say that we have RTI. We want to be able to identify those students based on their needs and get them the true interventions that they might need. And it might not be the Read 180, which is for a very specific group, or System 44, which are students who are at the phonetic level, very, very basic reading. So we want to make sure that we identify those students and try to, again, strategically place them so that every student that is in a specific RTI class is getting they kind of share some commonality of where they're lacking their skills, and we're able to identify, to work specifically on those skills to get them up. The same with math. You want to look at numeracy or some basic math facts and teach them up on that. And the goal is always to allow them to work their way out of that to get to a point where they don't need those interventions anymore.
What is your EL population there? Because I know our two schools have middle elementary population.
Right now, we have 28 active EL students, and 42 are being monitored. We have, and I had that down, we had 8 different languages that we're working with. Spanish is number 1, Chin is number 2. We have Bulgaria, or Bulgarian, whatever, I'm not exact, I guess it's Bulgarian. It's 2 Arabic students, so it's a wide range of students.
What's the chronic absenteeism rate?
We are below our goal, and I know you guys were going to ask that because I didn't write that down. Ms. Britsky?
We chronic absenteeism, we made another, we dropped our number of students this second month, and we're below our goal of 10-point-something% for Turkey Foot Middle School.
They're below 10.
Yes,
Below 10.
yes.
So what is your, what is the team makes you most proud?
I'm always proud of our students, even the ones that are challenging sometimes. It's sometimes difficult for us, as old as I am, to remember what it was like to be a 12, 13-year-old going through middle school. But I'm always proud of our students, and I've been very, very proud of our staff because with a lot of the changes that we're doing, our plan of excellence and our focus and refocus, they have been raring to go on what we're wanting to do and really focus on what's best for kids. Haven't had anybody talk about, well, this is a lot of hard work or whatever. It's all about if it's best for kids, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it for all our kids, not just, that's been a mind shift. It's if you're in the hallway, it's not, well, that's not one of my kids. When they walk in through Turkey Foot's doors, they're our kids. All of them are our kids. The good ones, the bad ones, the cute ones, the not so cute ones. They're our kids, and we've got, they're ours. And for 6.5 hours a day, they're our responsibility, and it's our job, should be our passion to get them to be successful when they transition to high school and on to their career choices.
So what do you hope to tell us next
hope to tell you that, see, I did write that down. Hope to tell you that we're going to be a five-star school, that our plans, and as we continue to improve them, are going to drive us to where, I would say, I was at Turkey Foot before I moved on, and you know, it was always the best. And I keep telling Dr. Gross, we're coming after you. We're gonna take that back over, and it's not just being the best in the district; it's being best in the state. I want people coming to Turkey Foot going, how did you do this? How did you drop your gap scores? How did you improve across the board? And that's always our goal, is to be number one.
So good afternoon. Welcome to Twin Awful Middle School. I'd like to thank Dr. Webb and the Kenton County School Board for taking time out of your all's busy schedule to be here. Thank you for all you do. I'd like to also introduce my awesome assistant, Miss Miotti. She does an absolute wonderful job. She's sitting to my left, but usually she's my right-hand man whenever I need something. And I'd also like to thank Miss Harney, even though she does give me a couple black eyes on some of my reports. She keeps me in line, and she keeps me focused. But to the important stuff today, talking about our school board report. Before we get started, I just want you all to know that we're kid-centered. I know we'll talk about data, we'll talk about growth, we'll talk about where we need to go, but we're here all about our kids. So before we even focus on a test score, we'll look at our student needs, see what they need from a social, emotional standpoint, and then we'll address the data point with them individually. But some of our school data strengths, as you've had the opportunity to read, from a math proficient and distinguished score, 62.3% of our students reached proficient distinguished in math, and that was a 2.2% increase from the previous year. We're really excited about that. Our reading proficient distinguished was a 61.8, and that was also an increase from the previous year. Some of the areas that we know that we need to grow or continue to focus on, 8th grade reading, while we also had a school-wide reading program implemented. It was our first year last year. We did have a decrease of 1%, but we're not going to let that go by the wayside. We're still going to refocus on it. We're still going to look at what worked last year from a reading standpoint, what didn't, and for each of those grades, it does vary a little bit, but we're going to keep pushing forward with our school-wide reading program. Our 6th grade math sort of raised a red flag, was 57.8% of our students scored proficient distinguished. While overall that is a decent, it was a decrease of 6.8%. So one of the things that we did, we met with Ms. Barrett. We looked at our Math 180 program, and a mistake that I made last year was I only had our students in Math 180 for 18 weeks instead of an entire year. So we're hoping with looking at our individual students, making sure they're strategically placed in there and getting the math core content instead of just 18 weeks of Math 180 remediation, they're getting a full year. Some of the strategies that we use to address our growth areas or areas of need, we do have a school-wide RTI structure program. And for the first 4.5 weeks, instead of content, we talk about citizenship. We talk about what it takes to be a good student. We talk about what it takes to be a respectful student. We also talk about what it takes to be a model citizen. And we feel as though once we have those structures in place from a student standpoint, we can then begin to focus on the academic component. And every 4.5 to 5 weeks, we are rotating our RTI structure. Once map test, once we've completed a cycle of that, we'll pull our student data, we'll look at our RIT scores, we'll look at percentiles, and then we'll place the student strategically to hopefully help improve academically. I talked about our Math 180 program. This is the third year that we've had it implemented. And as I've said earlier, I did make a mistake. I only put the students in there for 18 weeks, and the thought behind that was maybe we could get more students in the program. But it didn't exactly pan out like I hoped. So this year we did make some restructure to it, and we are banking on seeing some really good growth, especially with 6th grade math. And looking at proficiency, one of the things that really helps our students is how our teachers approach kids. They are so kid-centered. They focus on making sure the child has what they need. They make sure that they have, from a home standpoint, that they're being successful as far as, do they have everything at home they need? Or if there's a deficiency or they need something at home, they're making sure that, you know, they're providing what they can for the student. Also, every Tuesday, Thursday, Ms. Miotti and I, we stay after school to help students with specific needs, or if they need a place to do schoolwork, or just for an hour need a quiet area to get caught up. At midterm, every Monday, Wednesday, we offer what we call ESS, and that's sort of specific on instructional needs. While we might not have a lot of students in there, usually the group averages anywhere from 6 to 12. They're in there specifically, mainly it's for math, and we try to get someone that has a strong math background to help out with that. So there's another area, or there's another strategy that we're hoping to use to help improve 6th grade math. Our gap, we've sort of changed our mindset of how we approach gap students. Gap students include free and reduced, and students with disabilities. But we're looking at it from a mindset of great academic performers. That's how we approach gap. There's no excuses. We're not going to make excuses. Just because a student might be free or reduced, or they might have an IEP or a disability, still, it's our job to address their needs. So some of the school data strengths, our math, free and reduced, proficient, distinguished, scored a 50.5%. This is a 4.4% increase from the previous year. Our math students with disabilities scored a proficient and distinguished was 18.9%. This is an 8.8% increase from the previous year. And we're really excited about that. While it's not across the board that you see students with disabilities increase, especially in math, we are making gains. Being honest, is this where we want to be? No. But we're doing everything to make sure that the child has what they need from a social and emotional, but also academically. Our teachers they're amazing what goes on in the classroom. You want to see just absolute brilliance, just pick any classroom. Pick any day, walk in, and what they're doing instructionally, what they're doing to engage the students, it's absolutely amazing. Some of the school data for growth areas, our reading, we were at a 54.3 of our non-duplicated gap group scored below proficiency. Our math, there were some 52.2% of our students scored below proficiency. What we're going to do to increase that, we're not going to make any excuses. We've identified per grade level every gap student, and we've put faces with those names. Every teacher has identified every class period the gap students in their classrooms. They've also, from a content standpoint and also from a grade level standpoint, we created BRPs, our Blue Ribbon Prep Plans from last year. We met as a collective group. We met back in individual groups of what worked with those plans that we started last year, and we looked at what didn't work. And if it didn't work, why would we even think about doing it this year? So they went back to the drawing board. They've created new plans. they've actually not only created, but they've implemented the plans. They've looked at from not only a content standpoint, but also a grade level standpoint, what worked and what didn't. So some of that things that we did to address these areas, every week we're doing grade level PLCs. The first item on the agenda, what do our students need? Is there anything from a social, emotional standpoint that they need? Instructionally, how are they performing in your class? Is it maybe because something that we're not providing instructionally, or maybe is it something going on outside of school that they're struggling with? And we talk about those kids. And then we take it to another level. We started this last year. We call it Adopt a Bread. We look at all of our GAP students. They've all been identified. We've identified all the students with disability, all the students that are free and reduced, but we also added another category of novice. And so we've identified all those students. Our teachers are claiming and naming those students. They're putting their name beside the kid. Every week, they're making sure they're having some type of positive interaction with them. They're making sure if they're not doing their homework, they're looking, I see, hey, you've gotten a missing assignment. What can we do to help? Some will even go back to the teacher that they're missing the assignment from and get it. Sit down with them before school, after school, and help them with it. Am I running? I'm doing great on time, aren't I? All right.
We got a red light, you know.
All right. We'll talk about some of the things that we're proud of. This is our second year of being a distinguished school. It's a huge honor for our students, for our staff, for our community. But I'm just going to let you know we're not satisfied. We're pushing forward. We're making calls. What can we do? What do we need to be blue ribbon? We want another banner hanging out in front of our school, and we're going to celebrate the heck out of it when we get it. Our staff, they're all about kids. They take care of their kids. They want their kids to be here. Also, from a staff standpoint, they're willing to go above and beyond what's required of them. They'll come in early. They'll stay late. A couple weekends ago, we had Saturday school. We had 3 teachers here helping out. I mean, it's the unique thing about this place, it is a community. It's a big family. But more importantly, regardless of their student, they're willing to do whatever it takes. Any questions?
What are the reading and math boot camps?
So we look at our students that are not necessarily GAP students, but that are struggling with some type of, it could be a standard or some type of component, whether it be reading, more than likely math a lot of the times. And we pull those students aside for one day, one class period, and whatever they're struggling on from a reading component standpoint or a math component standpoint, that's what they focus on. And so our consultants do a great job of helping out, coming in, working with the math teachers, pulling the students aside, looking at what it is specifically that they need to work on, and then making sure for at least that one class period, and we have several students per class period, but whatever it is that they need instructionally, they're getting it, or they get some type of remediation on it.
So, my question to all the schools, what as a leadership team makes you most proud? Which one?
What makes us most proud here? It's more than one answer. It's our staff. It's their willingness to do whatever. Not just saying it because you're here, but from a school board standpoint, from a superintendent standpoint, from my boss, anything that we've asked to do or implement, I've been here going on 6 years. If we can prove that it's going to help kids, we've never been told no. So that's huge. I mean, being able to think outside of the box, being able to think about not only what if we could do this, but let's at least try it. So, I mean, that's huge. But our staff, students, and our community, and just from an overall school, family, central office standpoint, it's pretty awesome.
So what do you hope to say to us next year?
We're blue ribbon. Yeah.
I see your chronic absenteeism is 8.8. That's about what it runs.
It is. And Miss Miotti, do you want to talk about that? Or?
I mean, I can.
Okay.
We meet weekly. We call it Truancy Tuesday, but now it's on Wednesday. It used to be last year, so that worked. But we meet every single week. We have lists. We go through our kids that are on our watch list. We're running a few different social groups right now geared toward absences. We're talking to kids about how can they be more responsible for themselves to get themselves up. We're setting alarms, just talking to them about what they can do, because a lot of times some of our kids are getting themselves ready and getting themselves here.
We've
So-
also, sorry, and
It's
we've
okay.
also started our Great Academic Performers Group. And like I said earlier, we've identified all of our GAP students. And once a month, we're going to start celebrating them. It's not going to be anything instructionally from an attendance standpoint, but we're going to bring them in. We're going to find something to celebrate them. It could be they brought a pencil and paper to class that day. Hey, at least they were here, at least they were prepared. So we have several steps that we're implementing.
At this age, they can start getting themselves ready.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And we spend a lot of time praising them. You know, oh my gosh, you've only been tardy once this month. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but we are doing things like that. And I call, our secretary is diligent about calling and calling. I'm calling, and
They
we're
were
checking
doing
on
home visits
kids.
today. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As he said, I'm Karen Hendricks, principal at Dixie, and joining me is Tom Spritsky, our assistant principal. And we're very excited to report about our progress that we had at Dixie last year. And I appreciate your time and being here and hearing our update, so thank you for that. We'll get started with the proficiency category. As you can see, we did really well with moving our kids to distinguished, moving our kids from proficiency to distinguished. Where we need to grow in is moving more kids to proficiency. So in order to do that, what we plan to do is to continue to provide quality Tier 1 instruction. And one of the things that we've added this year is that our teachers are turning in their lesson plans to our administrators each week, and administrators are providing feedback, and we've found that that's really opened up a dialogue and has led to a lot of interesting conversations, and we believe better lessons. Another thing that we are doing this year is with our science department. We're having our science teachers review the courses that we are currently offering, especially the electives that we are offering, and making sure that they align very well or very closely with the next gen standards, because we may change some of the electives that we're offering. Our English.
Can you give an example of that?
Yes.
Because I just don't know what it would be.
Yes, one of the examples of the elective courses that we're looking at is the horticulture class and geology, and we're just making sure that it is the best courses for the next gen standards.
The next gen standards, is that
Yes.
state standard or what's next gen?
It's the science standards. I'm
Oh, okay,
actually
they're called gen standards?
next generation standards. Yeah. And it's just a different outlook for the science standards. It is more inquiry-based, and it's just very different because that we just want to make sure that our electives hit those standards the best that they can. Another area that we're focusing on is our English department is working on writing, and they're meeting each week and assessing student samples and looking specifically at what skills the students are lacking and what their next steps are for those groups of kids who haven't met the standard for that.
Are there any themes developing from them? What overall? I mean, in asking that, is it a curriculum issue versus an instruction issue? This teacher just teaches differently, or is it curriculum-wise we're not teaching writing?
No, I don't believe it's a curriculum issue. I think it's more of a, at least the themes right now have been a lot of punctuation, and I know that they're doing a lot of reviews with that, a lot of bell ringers surrounding around punctuation. So I think it's just students getting it at different times. And we have talked with our other elective classes who generally wouldn't do so much writing, and there's been a lot of more communication from the English department to our arts and humanities teachers, our PE teachers, who are now incorporating more writing assignments, and they are looking for the trends and the skills that students are missing. So they're grading them more for punctuation, and it's been interesting because a lot of them have said, well, we don't really know that we're qualified for that, so the teachers have talked with them about how to look for, and if they have any questions, to contact one of the English teachers to help them with that. The last thing that we're doing with this is with our English department, we are looking to continue adding a third trimester of English for those who are below benchmark. Before we did that for students who are below 40th percentile. We're now expanding that to more students. So if they're below benchmark, we plan to provide a third trimester class of English. An overall focus for Dixie is closing the gap. That is something that we know we need to do better with. Some areas we did better than the state, and we're proud of that, particularly with Hispanic students in math and reading, and students with IEPs scoring proficiency and distinguished. We're proud of those numbers. We also have some areas that we know we need to grow in, and particularly, as you can see, with students, Asian students. So a couple of the things that we're doing for this is our site-based council has been researching RTI periods. Currently, Dixie does not have an RTI period, so we've researched different schools. We found one school that we wanted to go and learn more about, and that was Rti High School. So we went out there and looked at how they're doing it, and they use flexible grouping. And we were very interested in how they organize that, so we've had follow-up questions with them, but it is something that we're looking to see if that is something we could implement in a trimester schedule.
When are you thinking about possibly implementing?
It would be next school year. And the model that they have requires a lot of collaboration, so we're trying to see how we can incorporate that. Because with the flexible grouping, it's a different group of kids depending on what skill they need, and that teacher would then teach to that skill, and there's a lot of organization and tracking to it, and so we're trying to see the feasibility for us. But we're very interested. It looked like a great model and something we're excited about. Let's see. I can't see the next one. We do have more. We have our teachers identifying the students who are gap and the novice level. Before, we had talked about students who are in the gap, and we would talk about them as a group, but now we are talking about kid by kid, who is novice and who is gap. We meet weekly, and we talk about kids that are struggling and what we can do to help them improve. So that's something else that we feel very strongly about is going to help us move our kids. And one of the things we learned when we were talking about kids is that we need more time to help them. And so we offer before school tutoring. We have 4 teachers who 2 help with English and 2 help with math. So we're starting to get more kids coming and attending that before school time. And it's just to help them on their skills, what skills they're missing, and having that content teacher help them. Next area, transition ready. One of the things that we have done well is getting kids college ready. And we've continued to do well working with CERT, and that helps our kids know what skills they're lacking, and because of that, we've done very well in that area. Where we need to grow the most in this category is getting kids career ready. We have the career courses in place. Where we've had trouble is getting students to complete the career pathways. So one of the things that we're planning to do is this year, when students are getting their schedules, is they're going to select a pathway. could be an AP pathway, a dual credit pathway, an admin support pathway, an accounting pathway, an entrepreneur pathway. But they will choose a pathway, and with that, they will have the classes needed for that pathway loaded into their schedule. So we believe this will help the students in getting to that completer status so that when they leave high school, they will have that industry background and something that they can take with them when they leave.
Right now, the lack of students completing it, is it a lack of student interest in completing it, or is there institutional barriers to scheduling classes that you need to be able to complete a path?
I don't think students realized the sequence of courses that they would need to complete. And so I think they were taking classes that interest them, but not necessarily in a pathway. And it might have been another business class, but it wouldn't have been one that was in a pathway they had already started. So we believe by loading it for them, they'll know and understand, here's the classes I need to complete.
And then the number of students who passed the certification was down from 32 to 22. How many were taking that?
The 32 kids took it. Is that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. The 87, I'm sorry, 87 had completed the
So
pathways.
87
Took it.
would have taken a test and then those got
Yes,
taken.
yes. And that brings me to my next point. We are working to have more of our kids passing the test, and our business department has been working on the ASK test. And they've been researching it, they've taken the test, so they feel pretty comfortable with this test. And at this point, they're working on creating a review test session, so that students can come to that and be more prepared to take the ASK test. It's one of there's COSTA and the business industry certifications, and that's what we've traditionally given as tests, and ASK is another one of those tests. And this one they can take multiple times. They can take it up to 3 times in a year, both their junior and senior year. So we believe that'll help us. And we've been working with Betty Montgomery from the state, as well as Jody Adams is going to be coming up in the next week or so to also help us with these goals that we have. So, is that? Keep going? Okay. Our graduation rates.
In your way, just tell me.
No, I thought, I was confused on the ringer. Our graduation rate, we decreased some overall last year, so it is something we're wanting to improve and strengthen. And we know in order to do that, there's 2 things we need to do. 1 is get the students in the school, and 2 is having them complete the credits needed for graduation. So one of the things that we've done is we've created a attendance committee, and we talked with students about what can we do building wide. They came up with, let's do grade level contests. So that's something we plan to do. We plan to announce the winners at our academic pep rally, which is something that's already in place and kids enjoy, and so we hope that will help increase the motivation. We've also had teachers analyzing their students who are chronically absent. So every 2 weeks, they're going through each one of their classes, and they're identifying the students who are chronically absent and then coming up with specific plans for those students. So we do a lot of talking about alarm clocks and about making phone calls home and checking in with kids when they come back. So that's been a focus for us. And then the other part to that is having the students complete the credits that they need for graduation. And we have our counselors are tracking those who are failing 2 or more classes, and they meet with the students and they create specific plans for those students. And a lot of times it's one of 2 things. One, that they don't have the skills yet needed to pass the class, and that's where we refer them to the before school tutoring. Or they have the skills, but they don't have the time. And so we have another strategy that we affectionately call a Gina Day. And Gina is our FRC coordinator, and she'll meet with them and pull them and have their assignments there for them and work with them until they complete the assignment. Last category, the opportunity and access. We've talked some about attendance already. We have a goal of 95%, and we've met that. We're really wanting to get to the district goal of 96%, so that is something we're still working on. Our Tier 1 PBIS implementation, we're very proud of. We do have fidelity, which was determined by KCSD, so we're proud of that. And our kernel store, which we had today, and kids had their kernel cash out, and very excited to exchange that and for the rewards they've earned. Another part of this category is our Arts and Humanities program. We're very proud of all the recognized winners that we have and consistently have in our Arts and Humanities program. To take it to the next step, our Tier 1 implementation, we plan to continue. We are adding in Tier 2 PBIS supports. And yesterday we had a student I was talking with in the hallway and checking in with her, and she was telling me about her camp counselor and how much she really enjoys meeting with her camp counselor. And another student came up and talked with us, and after she heard more about it, she asked to get a camp counselor. So it's very new for us, but we've seen a lot of success. The girl who was speaking to me has significantly reduced her referrals from last year and has done very well. So we're really pleased with the short amount of progress that we've had already with this.
What is a camp counselor?
Sure, it's our Kernels and Mentors program, and we have a student will come and say who they feel closest with in the school, and then we'll ask that teacher or whoever it is, counselor, whoever it is, if they'll meet with that student each day. And so each day they'll find some time just to check in with that student. And that's pretty much what it is. But it has been very successful with the kids that we've had doing it this year. So. Some of our things that we're really proud of is we're 8th in the state on AP scores. We are very excited at our celebration night to have that. Our ACT scores we're very excited about, and our National Merit Scholar semi-finalists. And we had 2 students, as of course you know, because they came to the board meeting with a perfect score of on the ACT. So we're very proud of all of that. We have lots of great things going on with our extracurriculars, but one that stands out is our cheerleaders last year won the national champs for the UCA. So, thank you.
So something I'm asking each school.
Uh-huh.
I'm interested to know is what is a leadership team makes you most proud of Dixie?
I'd say our students and our staff. Our students are great kids that so often I'll hear from community members. They'll call and say, "Hey, did you know your kid out in the pouring rain helped somebody change their tire?" And I'm just like, wow, our kids are just really awesome. Our teachers and their dedication is amazing. They really do go above and beyond, staying before school, after school, working their tails off during the day. So those are the two things. But I think as far as our accomplishments, I think some of our crown jewels are our AP programs. We have a lot of kids who'll come back after they're in college and say, you know what, I had such an easy time in my history class because it was so similar to this class. Or they'll say, I got out of taking Spanish 1 and 2 because of the AP score that I got. And I think that is something we're very proud of.
So what do you hope to tell us when you come back next year?
Hope to tell you that we have significantly closed our gap and that we have a lot more kids completing pathways.
You talked a lot about like the camp counselors and some of the other programs that you're working on to, I guess, improve the gap students and other students. Is that kind of a random approach, or are you tracking anything based on the students' problems and what works best for them that may be able to laser focus on later?
There's a Tier 2 committee that looks at the list of students, and then they'll track and see their referrals, have they decreased, or the reason that they were referred, whether it's attendance or referrals or grades. It might be all 3, but we would track their progress in those 3 areas.
Thank you.
Look, I have a question for you, and then there's one that anybody can answer, because I'm looking at this administration hearing increased from 20 to 48, so more than double with this under the influence. Are you just better at catching people this year, or is it a bigger problem, or is it just part of the overall community opioid issues going on? I mean, what?
I think it's probably a combination of all. We have brought the drug dogs out more often, and we've gone into classrooms, and so I think that's part of it. I think we do have, I just know the ones that we catch and what we're trying to do to help them. But yeah, we're still trying to get to the bottom of it and use the resources that we have to help them.
And my other question is, and anybody can answer this, but you mentioned earlier, and you're my first high school person to ask. So at the high school level, if you're saying, okay, language mechanics is an issue that our kids are coming in and are really struggling with writing, is there an avenue or some way for then you to have conversations with middle school teachers and in turn elementary school teachers to say, hey, are you really teaching language mechanics? Can we keep building on this? Or no, it's just you get them and that's how they are? Or do you have an opportunity to be sharing that information and say, when they're coming to high school, in fact, we stopped teaching language mechanics in third grade because of the problem? I mean,
We talk a lot with the consultants, and I know they work with all, and so I guess we rely on the consultants to do that because they know where our students' strengths and weaknesses, and I know that they're working in, and they'll tell us different things that they're doing. Hey, we know kids are coming in a little weaker in this area. The middle schools are addressing it by this way, so that's how.
The teachers might not actually be meeting with the teachers from the grade level below, but you're still getting the information.
yeah, I'm just thinking,
Right.
is that being conveyed in some way in the system? That's the question.
Especially if it's a trend, like you said, of punctuation.
Right.
We're needing to address that.
Earlier.
And if I could add, that's one of the things we look for is trends across grade levels. And from my perspective, what I've observed so far, we do not have a systemic approach to that across the district as far as vertical articulation in specific areas. That's something we'll definitely look on moving forward, especially if there's trends or patterns across schools, either grade levels or feeder pattern.
I am Mr. Popham. I'm the principal at Simon Kenton High School, and I'm pleased to be here today to kind of share some of the things that we're doing and answer any questions that you have about what's going on at Simon Kenton. Before I get started, I do want to thank the board for the support that you give us, because I don't think we could do what we do without your support. And I just know that when we go and ask for things, we may not always get a yes, but if we don't get a yes, we get a reason why, and it usually makes sense. So I do appreciate everything that you guys do for us as well. As far as proficiency is concerned, I'm just really kind of looking at summary things. I think we did a great job of moving kids to proficient and distinguished in math, social studies, and writing. And where we're weak is we still have too many kids at novice in reading and writing. And so that's the area that we really want to address. And as the goal I put in there is to move our students forward in writing. I used that goal because that's the only one that we can measure from the state this year with our testing, but we haven't given up on reading and math. We will also continue to monitor that at a school level through our CERT testing. So that is being taken care of as well. How are we going to do that? I think one of the things that we're really going to this year is the use of the data notebooks that Dr. Webb kind of brought to us. And not that we've all never monitored our students, but I don't know that we've ever put it in writing in one spot where you could just see what's going on with our students, see what the trends are. Our teachers have always done a great job of zeroing in on students that were struggling, but I think this is going to help us with the trends and with, oh look, there's a whole group of kids that is really struggling in this area. Now how do we address it? So that's going to be a big part of our plan. Our English department, when we did our department meetings and looked at our data, one of the things that they've noticed over the last couple of years is the struggle with writing for students. And they kind of, as throughout our discussions, they kind of drew it back to say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't write as many the essays, maybe we need to concentrate a little bit more on paragraphs. And if kids can write paragraphs, then they can put 5 paragraphs together and write an effective essay. And so that's one of the things that they're working on right now, is to look at more of a paragraph style, and then also more of a vertical plan for freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. So freshmen are going to concentrate on writing this, sophomores on this, and then once they get their plan together in the English department, they're going to share it for the school. And so that our teachers at each level will kind of know, hey, this is what we're working on, and again, get more of that systemic approach to how do we improve our writing skills. So that's something that they're pretty close to being finished with. They've met several times to do that, and they should be implementing that pretty soon. The other thing that we're going back to this year is our departmental improvement plans, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in just a minute. As far as GAP is concerned, we really did a good job in math of improving our proficient and distinguished while decreasing our novice in math. Just to be perfectly honest, 2 years ago we had a huge turnover in our math department and our scores went down, and I think it took a year for our newer teachers to kind of get back on board with the way we do things. And so I think that helped a lot, having a little bit more experience there. Just like the proficiency area, get too many students, too many of our GAP students in novice as far as reading and writing is concerned. So again, goals were the same way, trying to improve our writing goals for our GAP students, but at the same time, keeping those reading and math scores, and we'll monitor that through CERT as well. Again, how are we going to do that? I think the tracking of our students, or the tracking of the student data, that's going to be huge for us. And one of the things that I don't think we've ever really done in the past is we've identified all of our GAP students to our teachers. They've always known who their special ed students were. They've always known their minority students, but we've never really said, hey, here are, and again, we don't distinguish the free and reduced, but they have a list of all of our students, and all of the GAP students are highlighted. And so they know if a student's in the GAP area, and that's going to help us address some of their needs. We're really focusing, we have multiple PLCs scheduled this year to work on collaboration in the classroom for GAP students, and also Tier 1 RTI strategies within the classroom. I think our Tier 2 and Tier 3, our pull-out strategies are pretty strong, but our teachers needed some reminders and some help with what do I do in class. I mean, when you're sitting there with 30 students and 4 different levels of students, it's hard to address all of those. And so that's one of the things we're doing through our PLC process this year, is how do we address those students? What are some strategies that we can give teachers? I've done some research, administrative team is researching, and we'll be presenting those out as the year goes on. We've already had a couple. I've been in classrooms and learning walks and seen them implement, and it's pretty exciting to see teachers implement what we're asking them to do. So I think that will improve as well. Transition ready, that's an area that we're really concentrating on. Our ACT and our benchmark numbers did go up for last year's juniors, this year's seniors, so that's a sign of good things to come. But the CCR, the overall CCR number, or transition ready number, just low. And so we've really kind of decided that's what we want to attack. So one of the easiest ways is just using our CERT data much more effectively to focus in on weak areas, get ACT scores up. But the biggest thing, it just as Dixie is talking about, is career pathways, and how do we move that forward. And I think we've got a couple of really strong strategies going that will help us. One of the reasons that our ACT scores have gone up over the last few years is we made it a school-wide focus. It's not just a math and English and science issue, it's a school-wide focus. And so we've kind of turned that around, and our career pathways are going to become a school-wide focus. So we're still in that process. Our business teachers are looking at, what does that mean? Because for a math teacher to say, what can I do to help this? They don't really know right now, but our business teachers are working on that, and we'll roll that out throughout the year so that everybody in the school is working on this, not just the business department or our ag department or those students. Last year, we only had 55 students that were eligible to take a COSA test. This year, we're up to 80. So we've got a better chance of getting more of those completers. And again, a lot of those kids that were eligible last year struggled to pass the COSA test. And so that's another part of that school-wide effort, or giving COSA-type questions or COSA-type skills in all classes to help our students be more effective there. So that's couple of things we're working on. We're also going to survey our freshman business classes to see what are those pathways that they would like to see going forward, rather than us saying, hey, fit into a pathway we have, let's create a pathway that there's some interest in. So that's something that we're working on as well. Graduation rate, just to be honest, it did go down, and we're still really working on how to increase that and how to fix that, because I feel like we've always worked really hard to get all students in and get all students completed, and we're going to continue to do that. Use our SAT, SAT team, our RBTL teams to identify students that are at risk and do whatever we can to move those kids forward. So that's something that, again, we really want to continue to do. And not above visiting other schools and seeing what they're doing as well. For our opportunity and access, I mean, one of the great things that we're really proud of, we think we have a number of a very quality AP program going on right now, and our VPAM is really taken off, so much so that we hired another teacher in the art section last year because so many kids are interested, so many kids taking classes in that area. Again, want to continue to move kids forward, get kids to graduate, get our attendance rate up, and that's where our SAT, RBTL teams will come in there as well. Honestly, I thought I kind of wanted to just, before I go into the celebrations, just give you an idea of what, I guess I from way back, kind of a David Letterman fan, top 10 list. I'll cut it down to 5, but really these are what I feel like the top 5 things we're doing this year to move us forward and help us improve. And the first, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but the use of the teacher data notebooks, and the fact that we have a list in our teachers have in their notebooks a list, started with a list of every student in our school. They've pared it down to every student they have in class. It has all of their scores for CERT, for MAP if they're freshmen, and they're going to be able to track those and see who's making progress, who's not. And one of our non-negotiables is if you have a student that's not making progress, that student will have a plan to get them to progress. And not a generic, well, all the students in my first period class that aren't making success, this is what we're going to, no. Jimmy's going to do this, Tommy's going to do this, this is what I've done. So very specifically identifying that and putting it in writing. Not that we haven't done that in the past, but I think there's something to putting it in writing. Number 2 would be our departmental improvement plan. I think the success we had last year was because we took our CSIP from before, and instead of it being just a bunch of words, it's now a plan. Our departments, every teacher is involved in that. They've sent their department improvement plan to me. That will go into our CSIP, and from there, I'll make it the CSIP, but they will look at that department plan monthly and see what kind of progress they're having with it, and then 2 departments a month come to our SBDM meetings and present their progress. And so it's kind of constantly in front of them, and it's just not words that they've put down. Third would be that vertical writing plan that the English department is working on. We have a school-wide focus on the pathways. I think that's going to help us. And then the last thing, and we're in the process of getting this going now, I'm very proud of this, but we are starting a tutoring program with our National Honor Society. We have identified 50 students through teachers, and we have 50 NHS students that are willing to tutor them one-on-one. And so they'll get about an hour to an hour and a half per week of tutoring moving forward. So our plan is to get that up and running the first week back from Thanksgiving break. So we're very proud of that, and I think that will, again, help those 50 kids, and the goal would be to expand it from there. So I think that's going to help us tremendously. Quickly, our celebrations, we were distinguished for the first time. I can't be any prouder of that. Our ACT composite of 21.5, highest in school history. We had $9 million earned in scholarships last year from our seniors. And athletically, 50% of our teams made the state last year with a Final Four team in girls soccer, state runner-up in baseball. And just, I guess, to finish up, we've kind of taken the motto this year, a quote that I took from Tim Duncan, good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. And that's how we're approaching right now. We're proud of where we're at, but we're not satisfied. We want to keep moving forward. So, questions?
What makes you most proud of Simon Kenton?
Probably our principal. No, I'm just kidding. I think it probably sounds cliche, but I do think we're a big family, and we do not have students, staff, people in our community that do without things. If there's a car accident, if there's a fire, people are there to help them. Organizing meals and, just whatever it takes for people to be successful. Just the care that we have for kids. And I tell my staff that all the time. I just can't express how pleased I am to be their leader because they make my job easy. I ask for something, they do it.
What do you hope to tell us next year?
That we've made gains in every area. That's kind of what our plan is based on, and specifically, if it was one area, I'd like to say that our transition ready rate went way up. We're concentrating there, but I want to see improvement everywhere.
What's your enrollment number today?
1810.
And chronic absenteeism?
To be honest, we have not really, we've kind of tracked those kids, but I guess my feeling at this point is it's so early right now that a lot of those kids that went through illness, because if you're only looking at the 10%, they missed 3 or 4 days already, they're going to be in that category. The tracking that we've done, we're also tracking absences for teachers, and so one of the things that I've pushed to teachers is kids absent, they get a call from our attendance clerk. If we notice they're missing a lot, one of the assistants will give them a call. What I'm pushing teachers to do is if you've seen a kid absent 3 or 4 days, call home. Because now maybe mom or dad at home, they deal with one call if they're getting 5 or 6. Maybe they get tired of it and start sending their kid to school. And I don't know if that sounds crass or whatever, but whatever we can do to push kids and get them to school. That's really what we're trying to be about. So there's the chart of grades and there's the chart of attendance that our teachers are looking at.
I'm glad to see the graduation rate is increasing.
We're working at it. I mean, that's one of those that the figure from the state is so hard to calculate sometimes. Like, where did they come up with that? We just try to look at all our seniors, and I'll be honest, our one assistant principal, Miss Campbell, she's a bloodhound when it comes to those kids. I mean, she goes to their work and hounds them until they finish what they need to finish. So. Other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks for having me here today. I've come to you several years in a row. It seems like every year I kind of look back at my pictures and notice I'm getting older. I noticed I was with my mother yesterday, and we looked through all the old stuff. She loves watching me on TV, and she said I looked great, and I said I just look older and older every year. So, but I do want to thank the board for being here. I want to thank you all for all you do for our schools. It's very supportive. Everywhere I go, I brag on our board. We really do have an awesome board. I also want to congratulate you. You did a great job choosing the superintendent for us this year. I would say that even if he wasn't here. I know that was a large task, but I do appreciate that. I have with me my assistant principal, Mr. Shane Rogers. He's been at the school for a long time. Do we know how many years?
It's my 18th.
18th year. I've got great assistant principals, great staff, and I'm happy to have them with us. Mr. Rogers is going to give you an Eagle Cash for all the great things you've done so far this year. So Eagle Cash has kind of become a staple at Scott High School. Mr. Rogers actually led that several years ago. And that, of course, is part of our report. But I thought you guys needed an Eagle Cash to make you Now, doesn't it feel good to get one? See, it does. It does. All right, we'll start by talking about some of our proficiency. I know you've read the numbers and the scores, so I won't read all the scores with you, but I will notice that science and writing went up for us last year. This is actually one of the first years that science collaborated and worked together to move toward, we talked about the next gen standards, which is more of a scientific thinking based system, less content based and more trying to think like a scientist. We feel that's why we got some growth there. Our reading and math is down. But what we've noticed, we've been doing a lot of data digging and a lot of comparisons, looking at a lot of trends. What we've really noticed is it's down for our sophomores. That's where the reading task is. And Algebra 2 is juniors and seniors, so we're down a little bit there. But our ACT scores continue to go up and continue to get better. So we're doing a lot of digging to see if we can find out what's going on. We just feel like we're not getting our kids fast enough. We think we're getting them eventually, but we want to get them faster, because the faster we get them, the more we can excel them and the better off they can do. So you'll notice our growth areas there are math and reading. We've got several different things we've put in place, and you'll see some trends here, but we still are concentrating on our response to intervention classes. That is Read 180, that we get a lot of support from the board and from our district on. That helps a lot of our kids that are really low on the reading scale. And we still at Scott require math and reading for all students who are below benchmark, extra classes of that every single year until they graduate. We started that 4 or 5 years ago, and we've got some big gains from that. That's kind of fully implemented now. We're trying to look at what we do next, but we do keep those in place and want to give those supports to those students that need it. We are utilizing our PLCs to work on our best practices with reading. What we've really done a good job of the last couple of years and have seen to take in the most hold this year is our school-wide is really seeing that reading comprehension is super, super important. We've always done a lot of reading school-wide, but now they're starting to see the implications of it. The next gen standards are a perfect example. Like, to think like a scientist, you got to read like a scientist. You can't just recall what parts are in a cell. You have to be able to, read about them, know what they do, explain it, and that whole piece is what we're really pushing school-wide to help with that reading scores. And of course, we all know too, there's a very tight performance link between reading and math. So we do feel like that will help our math scores as well, but we're still pushing there. Moving on to GAP, you will see a very similar list. Science and writing improved on our GAP scores. We improved overall in GAP, not really to a point that we're happy with or that we feel even is a good thing to say improved, because it's better, but it's still not even close to where we want it to be. Reading and math is the concentration there again. We're starting to see a little bit of a bucket. That's what I call a bucket curve. We've got a lot of kids that we've moved to proficiency, a lot of kids. And we think that those RTI classes we put in have been a big reason for that. But the other thing we're seeing is a group of kids that are stuck at novice. We might improve them. I know we don't do growth at the high school anymore, which I'm very sad about, and we've expressed to the state a number of times. But we were always top 15 in the state in growth. But a lot of our kids, we moved from low novice to mid novice. So it doesn't show up anywhere. It shows up for that kid. It's really important for that kid to get that reading improvement, but it doesn't show up on your school-wide scores. So we're really, really looking hard at that. You'll notice down on strategies for growth, I've got our response to intervention classes we're working on. Something we've piloted this year that has gone really, really well. It's called a Strategies for Success class. And what we've done is we've taken a group of students that we predicted to be novice, put them in a group with 3 of our best teachers in the entire school, and every day they have a class with those kids to shore up their reading scores, shore up their math scores, and also work on their social skills. We've got about 40 kids in that group. It has done phenomenally well. We really are watching the data close. Their grades are better, their attendance is better, and also their discipline is way down. So we're actually trying to think, like, how can we do that for more of our kids, especially the ones that are on the left side of that bucket in the novice category. So we're watching that really close. Moving on to transition ready, something we've always been very proud of at Scott. We have done a great job the last several years at making becoming CCR, becoming college ready, part of our school culture. You could probably walk in, grab any kid randomly, and they could tell you where they're at on their college readiness standards. Last year we had a 72.7% CCR, which was the highest in the district. We lost a couple tools last year, so it's not the highest for our school, but it is highest in the district, and we were very proud of that part. We also, as a result of that and linking it to dual credits, we've got a tremendous number of students taking dual credit courses. Largest percentage in the entire Northern Kentucky area that I can tell. 117 students took dual credit classes last year. 856 college credits last year, and most of them were C's or better. We have a CCR coordinator that works closely with that group, so even if a kid doesn't do well in college, they get some counseling, they get some help, they learn a little bit about college, and we always tell them, you know, if you get an F here, we can help you, we can support you, get you turned around, send you right back to college. You get an F at your freshman year, you're probably going to be back at home and, you know, not going to college, which we do not want. That's what we're trying to avoid. We do not currently have pathways at Scott. That's the career ready part. We are working really hard to try to figure out some pathways. Actually, Ms. Setters and Dr. Webb and I talked to a lot of people around the state about our pathways. Right now we're looking at a pre-law pathway that we're really trying to push on. The biggest problem we have is certification. There's a big barrier you have to jump over with the state and KPSB to get teachers allowed to teach that. We're also looking at a Homeland Security pathway. We feel like we've got a lot of interest in those two areas, and we're hopeful from our conversations that we'll be able to put those in place and get some kids in those pathways. We did only have was less than 15 kids last year that got a career ready status, which we definitely want to work on. Graduation rate, you can see, is up a little bit, but still very, very low. All of this seems to come back to the same thing for us. We do have a pocket of kids that are on the left side of that bucket that are in the proficient area, and they seem to be the same kids in every category. There are kids in the gap, there are kids that are novice, there also are kids that are not graduating on time, there also are kids who are absent, and there are kids who are the discipline. That's all the same group for us. It's a group of kids that we really, really are trying to work hard to figure out how to help them. And what we're finding out is a lot of it's social emotional, a lot of it is home resources, and we're trying to get them the help we can. We've got a lot of help from district and a lot of help from our community on it. I'm just being as honest as I can be. Man, it is a struggle. We are seeing a lot of kids who need a lot of support, and we continue to keep trying to do that, and we'll continue to do that. Strategy Success class, we feel like, has done that greatly. I call it Mom and Dad class, you know, because they do a lot of mom and dad in there, and that seems to help. We also still use our Rti program a lot. We've got a very successful SWS program that gets a lot of kids graduating. We actually graduate several students 6th and 7th year, believe it or not. Doesn't show up on the data, but it shows up for that kid, so we keep working with them and keep pushing them as best we can. We also are implementing our regular student assistance teams. We've done this a little bit in the past, but now what happens is when a kid gets to a certain level with their grades, attendance, and performance, we will actually bring in a team of 6 to 8 people to meet with that parent and that kid to try to figure out really any resource we can grab. A lot of times it's a social worker. A lot of times it's somebody from central office that has ability and access to things that we don't have, working with Gerald Turner's department and our student resources. A lot of times it's counselors, drug programs, anybody that we can get to come in, we will meet with them and try to help with those kids. Opportunity and access, again, I want to brag on our dual credit. You can see there we have a lot of teachers that are teaching dual credit classes at our place. It's an excellent setup because what happens is a kid thinks they can take a dual credit. They're not really sure. They're feeling a little bit shaky on it. They'll take it at school with one of our teachers because they know those teachers, and then in no time they're ready to take an actual dual credit class off campus. We see that trend all the time, and it's very exciting for us. Also, we're going back to some PBIS implementation. We have done a really good job of putting Tier 1 instruction in place and working with our kids. What we found out is with our more troubled kids that we just mentioned is we did not have a lot of Tier 2 support. In other words, if all the normal stuff doesn't work, if all the things you do in the classroom, the Eagle Cash and the positive support and sending positive cards home to the parents, if that doesn't work, what do you do next? And that's when Tier 2 comes in. We actually spent 2 full days of training before school starts to get our entire staff on the same page with that. Spent a lot of time this year checking on that, working with a lot of different people to put those in place. I actually met with a district team of about 10 people last year to get that started, and those plans are still continuing. I'll run the celebrations before I take questions real quick. Again, dual credit programs. Also, we had the highest percentage of kids reach benchmark as juniors this year we have ever had. Our average ACT score is not as high as it has been. It's close, but getting kids CCR, we feel very happy and excited about that because it's something we've really focused on. Also, we had a basketball team make the Final Four last year, and I'm very excited about that. But if you went to the Final Four last year, what was most exciting to me was the large number of people who would come up and brag on our kids on the floor, our kids in the stands, holding doors open for people. I mean, even in the elevator, somebody said, "Oh my gosh, you're Scott High School," and just bragging on our kids, what great kids they were and how positive they were. In the same vein, we have a 4th-time regional champ in volleyball, went to state 4 years in a row, but that same team for 4 years in a row has won the team academic award, which means a GPA of like 3.7. Just phenomenal that our kids are that good on and off the court. Okay. Sorry, I went all the way to the bell, but I get a little excited talking about my school. So, any questions?
What makes you most proud as a student of Scott High School?
It's the culture of the school and the kids and the community. There is nothing at the school that goes on without our kids and our parents and everything being involved. Our parents came in this morning and gave breakfast to every single kid at our school to appreciate them for their hard work at Scott High School. I mean, yeah, it is. It's super nice, and the kids are very thankful for it. We were talking the other day, our biggest ally now is our kids. They'll see something, they'll see a concern, they'll see something we need to deal with, and they will immediately come to us and work with us and contact us. And they see the kids that have the high needs just as much as we do, and they're very concerned about it. This is one that blew me away too, is I was sitting in the English class, and one of the kids, they're asking about personal essay information, and one of the kids mentions that they're gay and their girlfriend and that kind of stuff. And the rest of the kids, it's just a normal conversation. It's not a issue to them. It's, it's the culture of the school. We're going to accept you as what you are. We're going to help you. We're going to reach out to you. And we're all here together being positive and moving forward.
What do you hope to tell us next year?
That we have gotten a lot of help for our neediest kids. We really, really are still pushing. Miss Eisen sent me last week, I think we've got almost 15 students in at-school counseling programs at the school, and we just keep sending them. We keep sending them. I'm afraid we're going to run out of resources, but every time we send a kid to these counseling, somehow our central office and our community finds a way to help them.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Thanks for letting us be last. No, actually, thanks for inviting us. This is the first board report we've got to do, and we're excited about it. I want to first of all introduce you to Dr. Julie Whitus. She's the other administrator that makes everything tick at the Academies and makes the scholars so happy every day. I do want to thank the board for having us here today. The Academies are in their 6th year, and we're so excited about where we're moving to and where we've come from, and it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for you guys. A big thank you to Dr. Kim Banta as well. She's become part of the Academy of Family this year and really learned what we do and engulfed herself into it. So because of that, we're able to move forward as well. And a big thank you to Dr. Webb. Common sense approach, straightforward, let's get it done. We love it. Thank you very much. The Academy's philosophy this year is care first and then teach. It's basically sums up all of our methods and everything we do each day. It's our goal to provide every one of our scholars with a more individual education plan. We do cater to that middle third of students that sometimes are flies on the wall in a big environment. So we make it feel like a very small environment for them. Like I said, this is our 6th year of the Academies. It's our 4th senior class, so we're really excited about them. We are so unique because we provide career options, but also teach what's called the soft skills, the necessary skills that industry and professionals want. We want to make sure when our scholars walk out here with their knowledge that they also have skills to demonstrate that knowledge to be prepared for post-high school. We have 7 academies. We have our Biomedical Science Academy, our Informatics Computer Science Academy, our Future Educator Academy, our Engineering Academy, our Military Prep Academy, our Women in Engineering Academy, and for our seniors, we have our Gemini College Academy. The report today, we're going to basically focus on 2 areas, our academics and our career pathways. That's what we very deliberate on every day. We're really highly focused in our career readiness through our COSA exams, through our ASVAB, and through our industrial certifications. Unlike most career tech schools, though, we focus also on the academic readiness by concentrating very highly on our ACTs. We take the CERT assessment very seriously. We rely heavily on the data that's provided from our consultants, and they've done a great job providing that to us this year. By looking at the data, it's quite simple. We have about half of our scholars that through the 9th through 11th grade show through CERT that they'll be being college ready, which is pretty cool. But now we look at, and you can see the same thing with our GAP students on the next page, it's about 40-some odd percent. But bottom line is that our goal is quite simply to take these students and work with the ones that aren't on that projection to get there and get them there. So we do that very simply. Each of our academies is made of 3 teacher teams. They're all rock stars. We've got a staff that they are phenomenal. And they get together and they basically break down the data, and then they decide how they're going to process that and how they're going to work with each individual student. And with our academy structure, we're allowed to do that. As you can imagine, all of our math and English teachers meet together. They discuss the commonly missed parts of the test and the areas that they don't learn. They devise that plan to reteach it. We do that by putting our scholars in 4 categories: the ones that meet, the ones that are just 1 or 2 points a day away. If you add those up, that's about 75 to 80% of our students. So we're getting there almost already. Then we have the ones that are 3 to 6 points away, and the ones that are 7 points and lower. That way we can make individual plans for those scholars, including the GAP students, and those teachers do that, and they work readily with Dr. Whitus on that on a weekly basis. This is something we're very deliberate on. We're also so proud, if you look at our ACT data, we want our kids to get college ready through taking the ACT. It sounds weird, but there's other methods to do it, but we've made it deliberate to go through that route. Last year's 11th graders, almost 70% benchmark in English, 66 in math, 73 in reading, over 50% in science. That means this year's senior class, our senior class of this year, over 85% of the students as of this week, they did take the ACT again in October, and we're breaking down that data. But over 85% of our Academy seniors this year exceed KDE's ACT benchmark, exceed the ACT average for the state of Kentucky, and also exceed the ACT average for the nation with a composite of a 24. Those scores are factored in and given back to the home schools. So we're very proud of that. As we go into our career pathway area, we continue to use COSA as an exam in 4 of our academies. Those academies are our Informatics Academy, our Engineering Academy, our Biomedical Science, and Women in Engineering Academy. We do exceptionally well on that in the state. As you can see at the data, we had 126 pass last year and 103 that's already banked in and passed for this year. We'll be testing again in February. Those are the only academies that they offer COSA for. If we had it in the other areas, we'd be testing in there and knocking it out of the park. Our Military Prep Academy takes the ASVAB, and also if they enter in the 3rd year of the JROTC program, they will then receive military certification for that. We also have industrial certifications in Adobe and Microsoft, where the scholars can use that right away while they're in high school and the real workforce. This year, we've added certifications in Autodesk for our engineering scholars and women engineering scholars, micro-credentials through Education Rising for our future educators, and Pharmacy Tech and our EKG Tech for our biomedical sciences. Those have just been added this year, and we jumped in full force. Next year, we were going to be offering the Praxis 1 exam for our future educator scholars, first school in the state to ever do that. And we're currently researching additional certifications in such areas as M&A and CNA for the allied health field. Hopefully we might start those this year if we can, and as well as opportunities that we're going to start working with Gateway Community Technical College to start building an associate's degree right on our campus for our scholars so they can graduate with a high school diploma and a college degree. Strategies are quite simple. In the academies, everything's very deliberate. So February will be our industrial certification month every year. The kids will be ready for it. They'll be hyped and pumped about it. So it'll be a very positive thing, sort of like our World Cup. We're going to continue to provide professional development for our academy teachers so they can teach new certifications and industrial certifications as well. The biggest thing we're working on right now is how to incorporate the industrial certification curriculum along with the school curriculum that we're using every day and making that become just the fabric of the whole day so the kids see the seamless transaction. The students have, in the academies, have multiple opportunities to go above and beyond the traditional educational requirements. there are many lists in our PowerPoint, and we, like all the schools here, we could go over many achievements. But the one thing I would like to talk about is we have a tutoring program that's second to none. It's very deliberate. Scholars get tutored in math, science, and English. They also get entrepreneurship training by a coach that comes in every week. We also have Kaplan material, and our teachers use that in the classroom as well. As we have ACT prep once a week for all the scholars that want to come to that. We have over 60 scholars in academic internships out there in the real world practicing what they've learned. Think about it. They go to the academies for their Academy 4-course pathway, 9th through 11th grade. Then their senior year, they take a capstone course, do Gemini College, and they're out there in the real world experiencing what they've learned in high school and applying that knowledge. It's what exactly we should be doing. Our Academy leadership team, which is made up of 8 of us in the academies, we're a very small staff. We meet bi-weekly, and we have quite a few things we do. 2 of the things we wanted to highlight today. One is all of our seniors, we all take a list of our seniors, so we have a small group that we each are in control of. We have a competition. It's like a, what do you call it? It's like we draft our players and everything, so you don't get to just pick the kids you think you want or whatever. And so we're in competitions right now to see which kids get the most scholarships, the most college applications. I have one girl right now that just got accepted to her 11th college today. 3 years ago, she was somebody that wasn't even doing well in school. So it turns out to be a great opportunity for our seniors. Second program we do is about attendance. We've all taken our individual academies. I have the afternoon biomed. She has the military prep. There's 7 of us. We take them and we look at anybody that has 2 or more absences. And we meet with them every 2 weeks, no matter what, and talk about school, talk about if they've got problems. Sometimes it's not a big deal. We look at their grades, compare that to their attendance. We work with them so the attendance will go up. We're very deliberate with it, and the kids know that we're there for them, and it doesn't look like a punishment. It works very well. So our academic leadership team is awesome. We have about 200 advisory members that mentor our scholars, give us internships, scholarships, and also judge our December and May presentations. I think you all know we have 33 college credit hours through Thomas More that are dual credit, as well as 12 hours through NKU. Those 11 professors come to our campus every day. They're part of the fabric of our family. Some quick celebrations. We have many, but we're very proud that all of our academies now have a 4-course pathway. Now they're all finally getting industrial certifications. We're very proud. We just got notified that our military prep academy will be a fully funded program. We're the only one chosen this year in the state, something we worked for 3 years. So we'll have a fully funded JROTC program. And I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't talk specifically about some of our scholars. Last year, Northern Kentucky Education Council, the Chamber, awarded our scholars the Academic All-Star Award, as well as the Against All Odds Award. The Academic All-Stars Award, he's a young man that was with us for 3 years, full scholarship to UK. The Against All Odds, a young lady that was with us, homeless. I was living in a trailer. She was an undocumented student, lives with a mother that doesn't speak any English. Everything on paper says the young lady should not be successful. She's sitting at UCLA right now on a full $250,000 scholarship, and that's because of her and the academy teachers. What questions y'all might have?
My questions, unless anybody else has some that I've been asking everyone, what makes you most proud as a leadership team of the academies?
You know,
I know it's probably hard to pick.
no, it is hard to pick, but you know, we love our scholars. I mean, every day we love our kids, but I'm gonna be quite frank with you. If you've been in as long as I have, you know when you've got almost a near perfect staff. It's extremely hard. Anybody that's been an administrator in a school system knows it's something you strive for, and we're there. And it's because they all care first and then teach. And they're there right now. I mean, it's Thanksgiving break, and they're right now tutoring kids today and working with kids. There's 100 kids right now on our campus, and it's the day before Thanksgiving. And it's because of those teachers and how they motivate.
What do you hope to tell us next year?
It's quite simply, I would like to see us have more industrial certifications. I'd like to see more programs in our building. We have an old building, but I'd love to see some additional academies. We've got some space. Let's utilize it. I'd love to see that grow. I think that's some major talks we're having, and we need to have more opportunities for our kids in Kenton County. And I think our 3 high schools would love to see us offer more academies for the scholars.
Is there, do you ever get asked about a specific academy?
Sure, you get asked about a lot of.
Do you see an interest kind of leading a certain?
You see an interest in tons of academies. There is a procedure to sort of follow to make sure that you offer something that is going to be something for the future for the kids. Something that's high level, that's going to be able to support their families. But right now, I think the big trend is our industrial programs that have been lost. And they've been lost because of low enrollment. We have to be very cautious of why they're not here anymore. But I think that done right, kids will come to them. So I think we need some industrial programs back. The workforce needs it, and I think there's plenty of kids out there if we just plan it right.
Over the last 2 days, you've heard presentations from all of our principals, and I want to tell you that I'm very proud of them. They've shared a lot of great information about a lot of great things going on in our school district. I want to thank our team for putting all this together and working with our principals, but also would be remiss if I didn't answer the 2 questions that she's asked every school. So in my short time here, I'm very proud of our people. We have tremendous people across our district. The capacity is amazing. Our kids are outstanding. I've been in lots of classrooms, was in one today. The level to think, the level we're getting kids to think critically is very, very impressive. So overall, I'm very proud of our people. And that's what makes our school system. And what I would hope for next year is that we can take a step forward to reaching all of our goals that the board has adopted. And frankly, the intentionality that I hope you've heard in these presentations, they've already given me the boot. That's no way there's 10 minutes. But I hope you heard a trend, and I'm very proud of our people because we have implemented some new things that people have embraced, naming and claiming kids. I hope you heard that. Yes. I hope you heard tracking kids. We have a really, really good school district, and I'm honored to be part of that. But our goal is world class, and to get there, we've got to move every kid. We've got to close gaps. So next year, I hope to be able to tell you we've closed gaps, we've reduced novice, and we've moved every kid, and we have more career certified and more college certified students. And we continue with the same family atmosphere we have here in Kenton County. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have too about anything you've heard the last 2 days.
No, I think it's been very informative, and it's more streamlined, and it just lets us know how well every school is doing it. It makes you so proud to be a part of Kenton County.
You know, all collected in the room here is high school and the academies. I think that too, you know, all them people take care of all those elementary kids in middle school, as we all listened yesterday, and it's up to these people to finish. And when they get 15, 16, and 17, we know it's not easy. It can be easy for a 6 or 7-year-old. It's not. We know that.
Well, I just want to echo a few things. First of all, great reports today. And I'm really proud of the way the district personnel in general, but especially the principals, have picked up on this new reporting format, preparing for the new accountability system. It just exemplifies how good of a staff we have here to be able to come in, put a new report together based on a new standard that they better get in place or else. And understand it as well as you have and how it applies to the kids, and then turn around and take that information and start already drilling down to find the problem at the student level and preparing the students for a world-class future. And it just really makes me feel good, and I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you that I told the group yesterday, a few years back, I spent a couple of terms on the assessment accountability, and they were starting some of this. And one of the questions I asked some of the people around the table was, you know, what's going to happen to your people when this happens? And the commissioner at that time looked at me and he said, what's going to happen in Kenton County when this happens? And I said, we got the best staff in the state. They're going to pick it up and run with it. And you did. So I am very proud that you met my expectations from back 5, 6 years ago. I mean, it really does make me feel great to be a part of what's out there. We sit up here and we make decisions and we support you. But you people are in the trenches, and I think on behalf of the board, I can say that we're proud of all of you. And I'll just add to that, we're really proud of our new superintendent. He came in kind of shorthanded, starting out at the beginning of the year. I think he's picked up the baton. He threw it up in the air, and it's still spinning. It hasn't come back down yet. So we're looking forward to some great reports again next year as we move forward. I think we're on the right track. I really feel we're on the right track for the kids, and that's what I'm here about. I don't go to Frankfurt and scream and holler at people down there even some days because I don't have anything to do. I do it because it's about the kids and it's about the future of a great country. And we have a an untold burden because these students are going to be parents and grandparents. And if you take the life expectancy of an average family, 60 years, you know, a parent, a grandparent, that's 60, 100 times 2 is 120, and if they become a great parent, that's 180. So we are actually preparing people that are going to impact this society we live in 100, 180, maybe even 200 years out. That's an awesome task, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of a team that is rising to that challenge and doing a great job. So you guys should give yourself a hand because you just are doing a super job with the students and Kenton County. And again, you people are in the trenches. And I just want to add with one final comment. I think everybody should write the state and the commissioner a letter and push for state support for ACT, all students in the 12th grade. It's important to the student, but more important I think to us, it is a measurement that we can use after the students are gone as to how well they've done and help the students coming through the pipeline. And I think that's critical under the new accountability system to be able to do that. So that's my, I guess, input on that, and I've been thinking about that since the subject came up yesterday. But
We could do
talked
that
about
as a resolution to the board, can't we?
So
Couple months?
So I think that's really important. I think that'll help you people too be able to look. It's always nice to look and see what did happen with some numbers. As you see how it's working for you now, we've kind of left the 12th grade with a we think we know, and it'd be nice to have we know. So I'm going to push that when I talk to state legislators and when I talk to the commissioners. So again, thank you for everything you do for the students in Kenton County on behalf of the board, and thanks for all the time you put into doing these reports for us. We do value them very much.